Thank you very much, everyone. Tessie Delek. So today I have the privilege of sharing with you all preliminary results. These are preliminary results from one of my most recent expeditions. But first, let's get us to Bhutan. Gotta love iMovie. It's a lot of fun to play with. So this is a straight line distance, obviously, of about 7,800 miles is how far Bhutan is from us. And I wish it was that direct getting there and back. It was over 40 hours with combined air travel and layovers to get from A to B and from B to A. This work was important on many levels, but perhaps for me, from the perspective of a famous first, if you will, this was the very first cave biological study to be undertaken in Bhutan. Prior to that, there had been some work on bats, nothing specific to caves. And so our team represented the first team to go in and start to assess the biological diversity of cave ecosystems. One thing that is inescapable when you're in Bhutan is the ruggedness of the country. It's characterized by steep-sided mountains, deep river gorges with blue-green water flowing through them. Here's another image. And I actually wrote about it in my journal. It took us about 5 hours to reach our next stop on the expedition. The views were constantly breathtaking, rugged mountains, lush forests, and kind Bhutanese folks along the way. Okay, let me just pause this real quick because I thought it was going to come through here, but it is not. I do have a plan B in play. All right. Okay. Wow, easier said than done, yes? I have no idea why it is not letting me. Okay, here we go. Well, now we have audio, but we have no video. All right, without further ado. What I quickly learned is there are no flat trails, nor are there any straight roads. Everything switches back through mountains, up and down and around steep-sided cliffs we go. This rugged landscape is also punctuated with these features. These are lakangs, or monasteries. Bhutan is a predominantly Buddhist country, and you will see monasteries pretty much on the mountaintops, mountainsides, in villages. This is Ringpun Zhong, which is a fortress that was built in 1646, and it's now used for administrative purposes by the federal government. This is called a Mani Korlo, and it is a prayer wheel. And the way that these prayer wheels work is that within these prayer wheels themselves, there are scrolls written by highly realized Buddhist masters. They will write mantras, sometimes thousands of times, and they will then place them within these prayer wheels. And if they want to increase the spiritual potency, if you will, they might put religious relics in them as well. And you see these handles here, and what you do is you walk around in a clockwise manner 3 times, 7 times, 9 times. And the idea being is that as they spin, they're putting the prayers and mantras into the world. This is a Chu Korlo, or water-driven prayer wheel. We saw these quite a bit. We also saw wind-driven Korlos. These are chortens, also known in Tibetan as stupas. These are shrines, and they will contain religious relics and sometimes the bones of Rinpoches and lamas and highly realized Buddhist masters. And what you do here is you can see that it's paved around it. You will walk around it in a walking meditation in a clockwise manner. There are shrines and altars everywhere because it's a Buddhist country. And this was a shrine that we got to see. It's called Dickey Guest House, and it's right outside of Paro. And this home was over 300 years old. And the same family had owned it, generation to generation to generation. And this was their personal shrine, and they shared it with us. These are butter lamps. Butter lamps are used for making offerings to increase spiritual merit. It's also said that the use of butter lamps through light can eviscerate ignorance, is kind of the idea behind them. And as a Buddhist country, this is a common sight, seeing monks and nuns in these scarlet robes. That's typically the color that is used here in Bhutan. Traditional dress is also common, and it's really part of the culture. So the women will wear what are called kiras. This young fella here is wearing what I'm wearing. He's wearing a go. He probably was able to put it on a lot easier than I was able to put this one on. First time, took 3 people to put it on. This time, my girlfriend and I were able to manage it after like 5 or 6 times. And it's, if my buddies in Bhutan saw it, they'd probably be like, no, God, we need to do that again. These are school children, obviously, and it is mandated that they wear kiras and that the young fellows wear gos. Also, something really neat is just experiencing the bucolic landscape and just going through, and because that's where we worked. We worked in these rural areas, and these type of visages are quite common. You see folks with walking their cattle, walking their ducks, walking their goats, what have you. These are a few folks hanging out after doing their, working in the field in the morning. This is a gentleman extracting resources from the forest. This is also a common sight. This is in Paro, Bhutan. This is the 3rd largest city in the country. And you will routinely see folks walking their livestock through the town. This is something I really appreciated. Warmed the cockle of my hearts to see this. Essentially, these digital messaging boards are used for, obviously sharing roadside conditions with drivers, also inspirational quotes by the king and the royal family, and, environmental advisories such as this. Here's a low-tech version, and we saw these pretty much festoon the landscape. It's along the thoroughfares, about every 10 miles or so, you'll see a sign like this. And this is all for good reason. So the Constitution includes this provision. The Bhutanese Constitution includes this notion, this concept of gross national happiness, which was introduced around the 1970s. There are 4 pillars to G and H, the first of which is ecological sustainability. Now, Bhutan is constitutionally mandated to preserve at least 60% forest cover in their country, and they're already surpassing that, and this exceeds the 30 by 30 Paris Treaty for Nature, which is trying to get, 190 signatories thus far, and what they're trying to do is say, okay, we're going to preserve at least 30% of my country's land by 2030, and then there's also a 50 by 50 that is aiming for the same thing. But one of the really neat things about this is that environmental stewardship is viewed as both morally and spiritually responsible. So it's kind of ingrained in the culture to be a good environmental steward. The second pillar is accountability and principled governance. The idea is that governance should be transparent, accountable, and responsive to the citizens. And the idea being is that the government can be used as a tool to both sustain happiness and a positive way of life. The third pillar is sustainable development, and this is focused on improving living standards throughout the country without compromising cultural or environmental conditions and integrity. And this is a really neat aspect of it, is that it prioritizes quality of life over sheer economic gain. The fourth pillar is cultural and spiritual preservation. Some of the slides that you all have already seen are a testament to that, right? You know, the Bhutanese architecture is common throughout the country. It's actually mandated that they use Bhutanese architecture. There's no postmodern buildings anywhere. And there are no, and then there's also the traditional dress, the kira and the go. And they also have festivals and art that all promote this. So this is all woven into the spiritual and cultural fabric, is this preservation of the Bhutanese identity. And they believe that by doing this, it's going to increase societal cohesion. What I quickly learned about Bhutan in doing this work was this. This is another excerpt from my journal. This was on the 25th of March. Marissimo Ne Cave. I'm beginning to believe that all caves in Bhutan are sacred. Upon our arrival to this cave, we learned a Rinpoche had been meditating in the cave. This is the forest monk that we encountered. He wasn't a Rinpoche, he was actually a forest monk. And he's living in this structure here, and he's been meditating there for the past 3 years. So all caves are sacred in Bhutan. And what we see, given their sacredness, is that there are altars in all of these caves. There's another altar. This is an altar from in Rangse Ne, and you'll hear me use Ne at the end of all the cave names, and basically that is Soga for sacred. And so folks go every year to this cave, and they camp down below the cave, and they this is the fourth cave on our stop, and although there's a modest altar in front of it, this cave is have nice potency. For 7 months was equal to meditating in any cave in Tibet for 7 years. I don't know if he was trying to sell me to go spend 7 months there or not, but I was convinced. I like the cave. But before we go any further with talking about the cave biology, it's important to go through a few fundamentals of cave biology. The first of which is that caves are zonal environments. As you can see here, there are 4 principal zones: light, twilight, transition, deep. And what you have in the light zone, as the name connotes, there is light there when the sun is up. And the climatic conditions are quite similar to the surface. They're dampened somewhat, but they're quite similar. Moving deeper into the cave, you reach the twilight zone. That is the depth at which photosynthesis can occur. The climate's slightly more stable there. Moving deeper into the cave, climate becomes more and more stable. Transition zone, as that name implies, it's a transition between twilight and deep. The deep zone, from a biological perspective, is one of the most interesting, because this is where it is completely dark. It is characterized by a near water saturated atmosphere. It has low to no airflow, and the temperature is quite stable, representing the average annual surface temperature. And this is important from an evolutionary perspective, because within the deep zone environment, this is where specialization to the subterranean world occurs. This is where you get these really weird and bizarre animals that, you know, lack eyes and require that habitat to exist. There are also several cave dependency functional groups, but for the context of this presentation, we're just going to go over 3. And these are all, as my grandfather used to say, 50-cent words. These are this troglobiont. This is an animal that is it's a terrestrial animal that's adapted to the cave environment. You can see here that it's depigmented, so it's this yellowish or whitish color. It has elongated appendages and antenna. This animal is eyeless, but others can have highly reduced eyes, which suggests that it's on that path towards maybe ultimately completely shedding their eyes, if you will. And it's also covered in hair or setae. And that hair becomes part of their navigational toolkit in complete darkness. So it's how they find mates, it's how they find food, it's how they seek cover, etc. The second functional group are called stagobionts, and this is just merely the aquatic counterpart to the troglobiont. Our next functional group are called troglozines. Now, these are animals that require caves for at least a portion of their life cycle. And the two best examples here are bats or crickets. And these animals will either roost or den in caves during the day and exit at night to forage. So this was a baseline effort. This was a pilot study, and we only had 2 weeks to get as much work done as we could. So in March of 2025, we spent 2 weeks surveying and studying 4 different caves. And our objectives were this. First and foremost, study the bats using mist nets, handheld nets, bioacoustics, and guano sampling for future DNA work. Document all other vertebrates by direct observation, sign, and through the use of trail cameras. And because we were also looking for animals, we also wanted to find cave-adapted invertebrates because oftentimes these animals are, because they're restricted to the cave environment, they are often also what we call short-range endemics, meaning that they might occur in one cave or one geological formation and nowhere else on the planet. So these would be important from a management perspective. And because we had the luxury of working with one of the world's famous, most badass cave cartographers, Dr. Pat Cambishus with Western Kentucky University, we also were able to produce cave maps and then plot all of our observations and our sampling sites, as well as those spiritual places of interest to the Bhutanese folks on these maps, which they will now have. And as you're probably guessing by now, this expedition was largely rooted in high adventure. It was a lot of fun. It was a scientific expedition, in my opinion, at its finest. We were getting after it day in, day out. And but we also had the overarching objective of heightening awareness concerning the importance and sensitivity of cave resources. And we wanted to convey this importance to the Bhutanese people. And one way in which we did this on our first few days in Bhutan is we held a cave management and conservation workshop. And we had 9 representatives from the Department of Natural Resources who were in attendance. And we're able to share with them our knowledge of caves. And what I thought was really cool is this gentleman here who worked with us at the end of the project, he started emailing me after wanting information about how to get a PhD in cave biology. So I got at least one hooked. So that was, that worked out well in that regard. So this is where Bhutan is located. I call it the offset belt buckle in the Himalayan orographic belt. This is a zoomed in extent. Bhutan at center here in red, China to the north, India to the south. This topographic map here shows you just how rugged this terrain is. And I don't know if this will work or not. Nope, it doesn't work. These are our study caves in the southwestern corner of the country. So I chose to do things a little bit differently with this talk. I'm going to walk you all through the cave like I went through the cave. And because we went to 4 different caves, we're going to be going, well, there are, oddly enough, 4 cave vignettes. The first one is Doji Padmonne Cave. And so this is, when you set up trail cameras, if you want to do a good job, you just don't quickly set it up and walk away and say, oh, good job, we're ready to go. No, you have to sit there and look at the monitor and move the camera around to get it framed just right. And you might even have someone walk past the camera to make sure that it triggers properly and we're getting the frames that we want. And this is an area that could contain leopards, 2 different species, a bear. There are no reported sightings of tiger in this area, but we definitely wanted to be the folks to detect a tiger here. So that's why we went painstakingly through setting this up. And you can see here, my buddy Pema took his job very seriously. Oh, this is great. So yeah, Pema was the tiger. This was really neat. As we entered the cave, we found this leech. And you can hear the bats chirping in the background. See if I can, maybe this would be a better spot for it. What was really neat was when I tried to remove this, I'd never captured a leech as it was inchworming along. And it was almost like I was going to pull it apart because it was able to grasp onto the rock surface so snugly and securely. It was really neat. But he ultimately did wind up in the vial. This is a Zygotoma, formerly Thysanuran. This is an ancient group of insects believed to have diverged from other insect groups about 400 to 300 million years ago. As you can see here, this animal is this characteristic yellowish color. So that tells us that this is probably subterranean adapted. The antennae are elongate, the tail characters elongate, appendages elongate, appears to be eyeless. This is likely a new species because we were the first to go in there and collect these animals. This is just a vivo shot of this animal just to show you how it moves around. And as I mentioned, we were misnetting bats. We were using bioacoustics to record bat calls. And when possible, we'd also use handheld nets. But this particular roost was high up on the ceiling, probably about maybe about this height, maybe a little bit higher. So no way we didn't have a net long enough to catch any of them. So we had to wait until that evening, and we misnetted outside the cave. And lo and behold, we got the greater evening bat, Ia io, which also happens to be, here's a little fun fact for everyone, the shortest Linnaean name for any organism on this planet. So this holds that little record. That's kind of cool, Ia io, and it's even fun to say. So this was a range extension. So prior to our work, it was not known to occur in Bhutan. And through this, we increased the number of known bat species to 69. And it's also important to note that this animal is listed by the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species as near threatened. So this is probably going to be of management concern to this cave going forward. And so we just got done working in the front portion of the cave. Now we're going to the deeper reaches of the cave. And this is what we don't have. All right, we are at the back of Doji Padmo Cave. Kind of hard to get a decent shot here with me, but you really don't want to look at me. You want to look at what's behind me.
See where the water seems to begin there. It looks like it comes out of a seat. And you can see how it flows. And it looks like the cave continues on there.
All right, well, we went past the stream, and we're continuing on. Now, within that stream channel, we found this. And what was really neat about this cave is that in the front portion of the cave, you saw those bats that are tightly huddled together. That's suggestive of a maternity roost. It was still early in the season, but that might have been what was going on. They might have been setting up a maternity roost. In the back portion of the cave, because that stream channel flowed through that portion of the cave, that cold water coming out of the belly of that mountain was that cold temperatures were conducting onto that rock, and it formed conditions appropriate for a hibernaculum. So we had 2 bats hibernating in the back of this cave. Obviously, this one was a little shy, so we couldn't readily identify what it was. And given that it was late in the hibernation period, it was late March at that point, we deemed it okay to go ahead and remove it off the wall, process it, identify it, and then place it back on the wall. Had it been at the beginning of the hibernation period, no way, we would not have done that. We would just have said bat and been done with it. And we found that it was this species. Look like this here. But actually, it's not really. It kind of looks like teeth, right? But that's soft tissue. That's part of its mouth, which does kind of look funny. And I posted this on Instagram, I think, and I got a lot of bucktooth comments from folks about it. It's a bucktooth bat. This was really neat. As we were proceeding towards the back of the cave, this is also likely a new species. We're deep in the cave here, and we have a harvesting. Clearly, you can see this animal is adapting to the subterranean environment. With respecting some of the this is a spectacular find. All right. And you'll hear that in the background, Hajj. I'm Hajj, basically Whitey. So that's what my buddy Pasang calls me. He calls me Hajj. But alas, this guy did not get to continue on. As I mentioned in the footage here, we had to collect him, and he's now in the museum at NAU, ready to be processed. So this is a cartographic synopsis of what I just shared with you all. This is our cave, mapped in a high cartographic detail. As you can see the little bat symbols there. Oddly enough, that's indicative of where we found the bats. Bats here, this was the Ia-Io roost, and then in the back we had the Pearson's bat, leaf-nosed bat in the back. Oh, goodness gracious. Let's see, the mapped distance of this one is 182 meters so far, but you can see these little dotted lines indicate that it keeps going. And then where you saw the video footage of me following the water and saying that it looks like it continues on in this direction as well. This thing could be miles long. It was a beast, and it was a neat cave. It was almost died in this cave. I don't think I told you that yet. But yeah, I was walking across this very rickety bridge, and I knew that my foot placement was bad as I was doing it, and my foot slipped. So you know that part of Indiana Jones, the first one, where he jumps across that trench to climb out. That's basically what I had to do. I had to dive onto the ledge, and my body just flopped onto it, and I was like, and then I looked at my buddy Pim, and I was like, yeah, caves are dangerous. So, yeah, and it was a good 10, 30 meter drop directly below me. So I probably would not be giving this talk right now, had I not made it. This is just to show you all exactly how hairball this getting to and from this cave was. It was quite sketchy. We had to do this drive one night in pouring rain, which kind of amplified the sketchiness quite a bit. And on several occasions while we're doing this, the driver's side is on the right, and I'm on the left and riding shotgun, and my hand was on the door handle, knowing that if we started to slide off the cliff, I was just going to dive out of the vehicle. That's a cliff. And we're taking the shortcut, which we didn't take after this. We went the longer route.
I'm telling you. You know what you're doing?
I think that was "Don't Drive Off the Cliff" in Zoga.
That's the hope, of course.
So our next stop is Rang Se Cave. This is where the pilgrimages take place annually. This just give you an idea of what the approach was like. It was over a 2-mile hike to get in and out. This is where the cave caretakers live. So there's a family there. And they also sell, snacks and drinks and such. This is a family group of Hanuman langurs. There's the male, female with her baby there. This is the area where I first stepped in monkey poop. Had not done that before. Coming back at night, focusing on not eating a rock as you're walking through a slippery, rainy landscape, and I got back and I was like, oh, that's monkey poop on the bottom of my shoe there. Once again, no flat trails in Bhutan. And you hear me breathing hard there. I got this from a buddy of mine who I bagged a 19,000 foot volcano with in Chile. And I noticed he was a documentarian, so he was running and getting in front of the group the whole time, and I was like, okay, I got to do that. So I had to run up the hill, get set up, have the guys come forward, and so hence me breathing hard there. We got to see a lot of wildlife in this part of Bhutan. This is a Malayan giant squirrel. We got to see the monkeys. And then we went into the cave, and one thing that I noticed almost immediately is that there are offerings in the form of organic material in the cave. Well, caves are nutrient-limited environments. So this influx of nutrients brought in by humans for religious purposes, while I understand that aspect of it, that might not be good for the cave and might be causing the system to not be in balance. But I knew immediately, as a cave biologist, that, oh, okay, well, we go here because this is where we're going to find critters. And in one way, I was very appreciative of this fact, because one of the ways in which we look for subterranean adapted invertebrates is by setting baits in caves. We'll get mushrooms and stinky cheese and entrails, and we'll lay all that stuff in the cave. And we also use branches from native trees, and we leave those for a certain amount of time, oftentimes a couple of weeks, and wait for critters to be attracted to it, and then we see what's on them. Frank Howarth, one of the biggest silverback cave biologists of our time, often would joke about what to eat before going into the cave to use for bait. So we also had snails, and this was neat because I've been working with a snail biologist who focuses principally on cave-dwelling snails. And well, glad everyone's sitting down here because this is going to be some riveting video footage. Sir, you breathing still? Okay, good. All right, but what's really neat about this one is this could very well be a new genus. I got an email from my buddy Joseph this morning about it, and he thinks it may represent a new genus. We'll be sending these materials out in coming weeks. This is a fly larva, and We have these in caves and in similar sheltered areas all over the world. It's of the family Caroplatidae, and you can see the animal here, and it creates this hyaline of sorts. And then what it does is it has these tendrils that are hanging down, and it excretes this mucousy-like fluid, kind of nasty, but works for this animal, because what happens is as it is going back and forth on that hyaline, it is basically patrolling those tendrils to see what flies into them. And actually, about, oh gosh, it was a better part of 10 years ago, at North Rim Grand Canyon, I was in a cave, found these flies, and I actually got to watch one. A fly flew into one of these tendrils, and that larva went, shot right down there, grabbed the animal, and started to consume it. So that was really neat. Here's some millipedes that we observed and collected from bat guano. You can see the guano here. This is a somewhat decent video footage of this animal, kind of struggling with the camera at times with smaller animals. Most likely a new species. Once again, we're the first team to go in and collect there. Here's another millipede species, most likely new as well. This is a house centipede. Scutagera is the name of the genus. This family occurs throughout the pantropical region of the world. They're quite common, as the name implies, in human dwellings. And we find them quite often in caves. I've seen them routinely in caves in Belize. And this is really neat, just about to slow the footage down. I think this animal is adapted to the cave environment. You can see here the antennae are about twice the length of the body. The tail characters are Circe, about 3 times the length. Look at that, about 3 times the length of the body. So this is most likely a new species, and there are no subterranean adapted centipedes from this family known to date. So this would be new in that regard as well. Here's another harvestman. So we have at least 2 different species of harvestman. One really neat thing about this, watch how this animal moves. Its second pair of legs are being used as antenniforms. So it's using it to sense its environment as it's moving through it. Here is the bat colony that we encountered in Rang-Sene. And these were indeed low enough to where we could use handheld nets to capture them. This is the team processing one of those bats. Here's another shot. And we have the Himalayan leaf-nosed bat. This is the name of the species that we got from that roost. And this is my colleague, Sangay Sering, with the University of Bhutan, releasing one of those bats that we processed. So on one of our nights as we were leaving, we heard this ruckus in the canopy up high, and we looked up, and everybody's lights went up to see what we could see, and we had a pair of these red giant flying squirrels. And as y'all probably know, using telephoto lenses in dark conditions typically doesn't work out very well, and here's no exception. So that's the best shot out of like 20 that I took. So on the hike back, I'm complaining about, man, I wish I had better light and camera, and no, I really want to get a shot of that animal. I'm just kind of grumbling about it. And my buddy Pasang, who calls me Haji, Whitey, he's going to lift my spirits.
Yeah. Right.
On another night, we were leaving the cave late, and we heard thunder from within the cave. And we're like, oh, all right, we get to hike 2 hours in a rainstorm. And we did. That's what this was. It was great. We we got to stop at the halfway point where the caretakers were, and they fed us and gave us hot tea, and so we hung out with them for a little bit before continuing on. Once again, cartographic summary here of what we found. The bat roost, as you can see, is in the back portion of the cave. You can see where we collected invertebrates, the yellow polygons with the gray stripes through them. And there's altars as well. Here's an altar. This is our third cave, vignette. This is Marissimo Ne Cave. This is the area where the monk has been meditating for the past 3 years. And the villagers bring him food. So, he's totally reliant on the villagers who take care of him. And the villagers do it because they're Buddhist and they believe that builds merit, spiritual merit to care for others. Now, this was really cool. I've done some research on this animal, this Emesene, and these are called thread-legged bugs. And they're of the family Reduviidae, which Reduviidae are the assassin bugs, kissing insects, the ones that we believe gave Darwin Chagas disease. These are not known to be in a subterranean adapted form in Asia, based on what I've been able to uncover thus far. Another really neat thing about this animal, you will notice, let me see if I can do this without unplugging my computer, that these are its forelimbs, the front pair of legs here, and they're using it as antenniforms as well. And you can hear the bats in the background. Now, this was really neat. I've heard bats echolocate, flying overhead when in the forest, but I've never heard them to this extent. So we're in this cave. It's a low-hanging roost, and the latter portion of this, you can actually hear them echolocating. Wait, why did it? Well, I promise you can do that. Hold on. Not sure why that didn't work. Sorry, folks, that's a little hard to hear. Probably heard some of that. So we were able to catch these in the cave. Hipposideros ameger is the Linnaean name. This is the Himalayan leaf-nosed bat, same species that occurred in Rongse Ne Cave. And this was really neat. These are brush-tailed porcupines. There are no contemporaneous data on these animals. We know that these animals use caves based on fossil evidence from caves in Asia, but this is the first time that they've been documented in caves. And once again, it's not working. Here we go. Really neat animals and great climbers. And we kind of hit pay dirt with this one because we only had the cameras deployed for one night, given the area, and we weren't certain that they were going to be safe, might get stolen, and the entire night was a buzz with these guys. They were doing what brush-tailed porcupines do in a cave, I guess, and they were just zipping back and forth. What was also neat is, based on the research that I've done, these animals will form family groups of 3. And we got 3, which was kind of cool. Here's our summary of the cave in terms of what we found. The bat roost in the back of the cave, while not plotted, right where that trail camera is, right beyond, is where the brush-tailed porcupine observations occurred. Now for our final stop. So this is Drakar Ne Cave, and we were the last 3 caves. We were in the southern extent of the country, about less than 100 miles in most cases from the Indian border. And now we went to Paro to the north and went up to JJ Peak, which is at 10,000 feet elevation. So we're in the mixed coniferous forest here. And this is a really neat looking forest. I've never seen an Asian mixed coniferous forest before, and it looks like something on a Dr. Seuss to me. It was really quite bizarre and neat at the same time. This is a Trechus or a Davalius beetle. We're not sure which. This is also probably new. It's a carabid beetle. It's a predator. You can see the way it's kind of moving through the cave with purpose. It's looking for prey or looking to get away from me. We saw these hibernating in caves. We saw about 50 of these, and this was really cool too. These are Inomiene moths. Another little fun fact, Geometridae is the, oops, that should have been family. Geometridae is the family of lepidopterans that are inchworms. So if you see an inchworm, you know that it's a Geometridae. This is one of two hibernating bats that we encountered. And we were able to, given it was late in the season, we were able to pull this little guy off of the wall, and we determined that it was the Hutton's tube-nosed bat. And we set up trail cameras as well. Once again, very short duration. We only had them deployed for a 24-hour period. And this is what you get sometimes, despite all your efforts to make sure that everything's framed properly. You get whiskers. That's all you get. You just whiskers. This was neat. This was a Siberian weasel. You might have to just trust me on that. You'll see it take off in that direction. But yeah, very weasel-like in its behavior. I looked at the books, and even, wow, AI was actually useful in this. I described what the animal looked like, and it gave me several options because I couldn't find it in my Bhutan mammal book. And lo and behold, it turned out to be one of the ones that it offered as a possibility. This was in my book. This is a white-bellied rat, we think. These animals range from about 300 meters elevation all the way up to above tree line. Cute little guy. He was quite busy in this entrance as well. We got him on a few occasions. This is a summary of the cave. Once again, bats in the back of the cave are invertebrate sampling locations. That's where we got whiskers right there. And as these are preliminary findings, this is a preliminary summary. So this is what we have so far. We have 17 different taxonomic groups of invertebrates that we've identified from this work, representing at least 65 different species. And as I mentioned earlier, we were the first team to go in and collect invertebrates from these caves. And for all of the areas where we were the first team to do any entomological work there. So it stands to reason that we're probably looking at upwards of at least 60 new species. So Kathy asked me earlier about how many, might nearly double that number with this Bhutan work. These are our 4 different bat species. The one obviously of the most interest to us was the fact that this range extension of this near threatened species, Io. And this will most likely be a paper. We've already discussed it, and we're going to be writing this up probably in coming months to document this range extension because previously it was not known to occur in Bhutan. This is also noteworthy. This discovery of these of contemporary use of caves by brush-tailed porcupines. And this is something that I'm still cogitating on, is figuring out how best to move everything forward from making management recommendations. We're still in a very early stage. We still have to process the data. We still have to quantify it. We still have to pore over it quite a bit before we can get to that point of being able to make meaningful recommendations to the Bhutanese government. And there are several things that we'll need to do first. First of which, we'll need to process, identify, and send out the invertebrate specimens to systematists who can then, in most cases, identify and in most cases formally describe those animals as new. Because like I said, we're looking at mostly new species. We also collected gigabytes upon gigabytes of bat calls using our detectors. I just barely touched upon that earlier on because we haven't processed those data yet. Our objective was to be able to catch the bats outside of the cave, release them, and then follow them around with the detector to collect voucher calls. Well, we were only able to get one. So, that wasn't going to, it's not going to be very useful. So we're going to be collaborating with Nepali and North Indian bat biologists to see the extent to which their bat call data is useful for identifying the data down, or narrowing the data down to species level identifications, and start that process of developing a bat call library. This is a bit of a sticky wicket in that, needing to honor sacred spaces while protecting biological diversity. This is not the best picture, but not that bad either. You can see here there's flowers. The white material here is rice, and there's a piece of candy in a plastic wrapper. This is in the deep part of the cave. This speleothem, we would refer to this as still being alive, meaning that it's still forming, it's still growing. And this is a big no-no as well. You don't touch active formations, but they're doing this with it. They don't know. So this is something that we need to find a clear path forward on. This is something else we observed in the deepest part of this cave. This is food and used as offerings, and those are surface-dwelling ants. I have little doubt that these ants are most likely competing directly against the detritivore species, the scavenging species, and probably preying upon them, and as well as preying upon other subterranean adapted animals. So this is a problem. But going forward, I'm quite optimistic that we will be able to find a meaningful resolution to this, and that is, we're probably going to need to encourage folks to change their practices in these caves. And given that so much weight is placed on environmental sustainability and ecological protection, and it's written into the Constitution as such, I do believe that we're going to be able to make gains in that regard. And with that, we're going to land that plane back here in Flagstaff. Bam. And there are many folks that I would like to acknowledge here. Hey, look at there. NAU Office of the Vice President of Research. I know a guy there. All these folks made this work possible. And there was, the NAU side, my goodness, we were thrown so many curveballs with this project. This was a bugbear of mine in terms of just the amount of work it took to ultimately get it off the ground, but off the ground it did got. And I'd also like to thank Sangay Sering with the Royal University of Bhutan. He's our in-country partner. Pat Kambizis obviously was the cartographer, and then this long list of folks that made this work possible. And with that, Kadin Chela. Thank you.